a couple years ago, I had been thinking about how socially unsatisfied I was with the quality of conversations I was around and had been having. One afternoon, I was reading and I had an idea. An idea that seemed pretty interesting, but also kind of crazy. So I called up a group of friends and said, hey, what if we went out to Chicago and held up signs that said, free, intelligent conversation? Now, at the time, we were living here in Berrien Springs, so Chicago is 2 hours away. They're like, oh, we'll have to drive there, and we have to find parking, and then we have to make signs, and we have to make cards, we'll have to set up an online presence. Oh, and by the way, Kyle, this idea is crazy. And I was like, no. The concept is simple. It's a way to network. People will read the sign and see the word intelligent, and that'll scare most of them away. And the ones who do stop and talk to us are either brave, curious, or smart, which is exactly the kind of people we wanted to be around anyway. Then we tell them what my working definition of intelligence is that we think everyone is intelligent. More important than the collected information we have is the life experience we each possess. And because we each have this unique combination of life experiences, we always have something to share, and we always have something to learn from someone else. It's when these experiences are shared that intelligent conversation takes place. So we made signs, picked a date, and we headed out. Now, the first time we went to Free IC, we call it Free IC for short, we went to Wicker Park, Chicago. There was 4 of us, and we spread out about a mile radius, and I had an incredible experience. I would be talking to someone, and someone would want to know what's going on. They'd come and join the conversation, and someone else would hear something that caught their attention, so they would come and join the conversation. And the next thing I know, I'm surrounded with 9 guys in the middle of the sidewalk talking about how Karl Marx's economic philosophies have influenced and led to the decay of Chicago's inner city. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. I have no idea what we're talking about, but this is exactly what I was looking for. Now, as the conversation went on, I had less and less to contribute, so I told the gentleman, hey, it was nice to meet you. I'm going to continue doing this down the street. So I went down and Free IC'd somewhere else for about an hour and 45 minutes, met some cool people, heard some great stories. It was getting kind of late, so I texted the group of guys I was with. I said, hey, we should probably head back, so let's meet at the car. Now, as I was walking back to the car, I noticed the same group of gentlemen that I had spoken to almost 2 hours ago were still there talking to one another. And not only were they talking to one another, I heard them exchanging contact information and talking about meeting up in the future and bringing them over to each other's houses and events happening into the city that they should all go to. Now, what struck me about that is not that they were exchanging contact information, it's the different groups they represented. They were black and white. They were poor and middle class. They were Muslim and Catholic. They were biology majors and art majors. A group of people which were unlikely to have ever spoken to each other, not only spoke to each other for 2 hours, but were talking about meeting up in the future. At that point, I realized, whoa, this is way more than networking. This is more than a gathering of pretentious snobs flaunting their knowledge. I met back up with the 3 other guys that had gone out, and they too had had an incredible experience, and they got a lot of good feedback. And just like that, it started. It's been 3 years now. We try to go out every week, if the weather permits. There's a lot more people involved. Different groups have started doing it in different cities and some in different countries. And throughout these last 3 years, I've had a great chance to learn so much from people. I've met people with amazing stories, people with crazy ideas and different backgrounds. I've had a chance to talk about astronomy, foreign policy, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've met Cynthia, Deshaun, Chao Zhu, Raul, and Heather. Now, with this 3 years, there are some stories that we've heard, and after hearing these stories, you can't help but reassess your own life. One time I had a conversation with a lady who told me a story that happened to her when she was 16. She said when she was 16 years old, Her and her mother had a strained relationship, and at midnight, her mother told her, hey, I'm sick of you, get out of my house. So she packed her stuff, and by the time she finished packing and was out of the house, it's 2 in the morning, and she's walking the streets of Detroit. She has no idea where to go, and a group of police officers come up to her and they say, hey, what are you doing? It's past curfew, you're a minor, where do you live? Now, she doesn't know what to say, and out of panic, she says her mother's address. So now she's riding in the back of a police car, headed to the house that she just got kicked out of. When they reach the house, they're walking up the stairs, and before they can even make it to the doorbell, her mother comes busting out the door with tears running down her face. She throws her arms around her daughter and says, oh my goodness, officers, thank you for bringing her home. We don't know why she ran away. We've been looking for her for so long. Thank you so much. And her mother is kissing her on the cheeks, and she's telling me, she's sitting there thinking to herself, are you kidding me? But she knows that she can't say anything because she's a child and no one will believe her, so the police officers leave and she goes back in her house and sits in silence for 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes is up, her mother comes back, grabs her and says, hey, get the, explicit, out of my house. She told me that story happened to her 7 years ago. She said that she's been on her own since. That was the last time she spoke to her mother. Now, you hear stories like that, and it puts a lot of things in perspective for you. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong idea. Not all conversations are that heart-wrenching and that serious. Most of the time when I go out, I like to lead with the conversation. Lead with a question, sorry. My favorite question to start a conversation is, if you had 20 minutes to speak to everyone in the world, what would you tell everyone? Now, before I continue, ask yourself, if you had 20 minutes to talk to everyone, what would you tell everyone? Usually when I ask this question, people pause and then proceed to tell me steps on what they tell everyone to change the world. Or they hit me with these huge philosophical answers like, oh, we need to love everyone, and we need to learn to accept each other, or we need to take care of our kids, and the best way to do that is to lead by example, or we need to do away with religion because it's tearing us apart. In this instance, I asked this gentleman, I said, hey, if you had 20 minutes, you could speak to everyone, what would you say? This guy pauses, grabs his chin, takes a deep breath, looks me dead in the eyes with a boldness that to this day I still envy. And he says, if I had 20 minutes, I would tell everyone, yo, follow me on Instagram. And I'm like, what, Instagram? You have 20 minutes? Do you know how much good you can do? You can bring awareness to so many different things. 1 in 9 people don't even have access to clean water. You want to talk about Instagram? And with this cool, he looks at me, he's like, bruh, 7 billion followers? Now, I've had a lot of different kind of conversations, and as a result of that, people always ask me, okay, Kyle, so you've had all these different type of conversations. What is free, intelligent conversation? What is it you're trying to do? What is your vision? What's the goal? Now, that's a tough question for me to answer. And I usually tell people that free IC is a thick cake with a lot of layers. My short answer, free intelligent conversation is a movement dedicated to creating conversations between people of different perspectives and breaking social barriers. My long answer, I'm going to try to condense into 3 points and share with you. First, we're trying to create a place where we celebrate each other's differences. So many times our differences are used to separate us. And these differences, whether they're social, racial, cultural, or economical, are things that we're mindful of and careful when we talk to different people. But these differences shouldn't be used to separate us because it's these differences that allow for great conversations. Instead, we should be celebrating each other's differences. Oftentimes, we join up with people with the same views as us because it's easy and because we're shy and because we're afraid of things that are foreign, and so I'd rather stay here in my comfort zone. But it's staying in that comfort zone that has led to these horrible understandings of people which have perpetuated into stereotypes and misconceptions about people who are different than we are. You fear what you don't understand, and you can only grow as much as you expose to, and you have to ask yourself, how am I ever going to understand the people who are different than me if I never take the time to meet them? With free intelligent conversation, we're looking to make a place where we can meet despite our differences. A place where our differences are used as means to learn from one another. A place where we celebrate each other's differences. The second thing, with free intelligent conversation, we're looking to create a place where we can talk about absolutely anything. One time, I had a conversation with a 25-year-old lady who told me a story that happened to her when she was 19. Before we started the conversation, she told me, I haven't really talked to anyone about this, but when I was 19, me and my boyfriend were hanging out, and I heard a thud in the room. So I ran over to the room, opened the door to find out that my boyfriend had just committed suicide. She said that moment changed the course of the next couple of years. She said, every day, all I would ever think about is, why did he commit suicide? Why would anyone commit suicide? What does that say about me? Was I such a bad girlfriend that he couldn't bear to be around? She said one day she was walking outside and she looks up, she's like, oh my goodness, the clouds are beautiful today. And it hits her that was the first time in 5 years that she had ever taken the time to appreciate anything. Now, when she's talking, I pause and I'm like, wait, why are you telling me this? And why didn't you talk to anybody about this? And she says, well, I just never really could talk to anyone. I'm not a religious person. I don't have church members to speak to. I don't have a lot of close friends. And who wants to be the girl that goes to the bar or the club and says, hey, you want to talk about my boyfriend who committed suicide 6 years ago? No? Okay. She said, the reason I told you is because this was one of the first times I could talk about it without it being awkward or out of context. Free intelligent conversation is looking to create a place where people can bring their stories, their lives, their ideas, their thoughts, and speak about them without the fear of being judged. A place where if you're Muslim and I'm Christian, and someone else is atheist, we can sit down and have a discussion about our beliefs without it turning into a conversion battle. But the reason it turns into a conversion battle in the first place is because of the tone of which we're used to talking to one another. With Free RC, our motive isn't to try to figure out who's right and who's wrong, it's to try to understand one another. And because of that, in trying to understand you, I have to acknowledge that you're going to have your beliefs and your thoughts and your opinions that I don't agree with, and that is okay. With free intelligent conversation, we're looking to create a place where you can speak about anything, a place of curiosity where you can talk about all the compelling thoughts of the universe, a place of empathy where you can talk about some of the burdens that are on your soul. Finally, with free intelligent conversation, we're also looking to remind people the value of conversation. There's something scary and exciting about talking to people, especially strangers, face to face. What's exciting is meeting new people and all the different possibilities and trying to understand the combination of complexities that make up this individual. What's scary is the vulnerability. You can't hide things. You can't hide the body language that tells someone that you disagree with them. You can't hide the shame in your face as you share something that you're not proud of. And in the conversation, you might have to talk about something you know nothing about, and you might say something stupid, and you might mumble on your words, and you have to keep eye contact. But it's those things that enhance the conversation. How many times are you talking to someone on the phone or texting someone trying to explain the awkward face you just made? And while emojis and emoticons are great, they just don't do these micro-expressions justice. Now, we live in this hyper-connected world where we've become glued to our phones, and kids are growing up with social media skills, but they don't have people skills. Or they know what's something you should post on Twitter, not Facebook, but they don't know how to have a conversation with someone who's 30 years older than they are. One time I had a conversation with an elderly lady, and she was telling me, I know I don't have that many years left on this earth, and I would love to meet the younger generation, but it seems like they're always on their phone. And I didn't grow up with technology, and I don't want to be a bother, so I just leave them alone. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, how sad. Instead of drawing closer to the people who are older and wiser than we are, we've kind of created this wedge. Now, by no means is free intelligent conversation a protest against social media. We just don't want social media to become the crutch in which our relationships cling onto. We want to remind people that, hey, before you were a Facebook user, you were a person. There's something special about being present, about removing all distractions and taking the time to listen and to be heard. There's something a little more permanent about ending a conversation with a handshake or a hug. A lot of big decisions in life happen after some really important conversations, yet we walk by these conversations every single day. Free Intelligent Conversation is looking to create a culture of people who seek out these often passed by conversations. Now, you can imagine we've heard some crazy stories. We've met some awesome people. Some of us have gotten dates out of it. Some of us have made lifelong friends. Some of us have gotten job offers and business connections. And some of us just find joy in talking to people who are different than we are. So, if you see us on the sign with a sign that says Free Intelligent Conversation, come talk to us. About what? About anything and everything. Willing individuals is the only thing needed for an intelligent conversation to take place. We're willing. We invite you to join us on this journey. Thank you.